Welcome to Spoiler Talk for The Loop by Jeremy Robert Johnson. Where the hell do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, that's the thing. I have, there's a variety of different thoughts that I'd like to work through, but I think that the most important thing, and I put this in our notes, so Livius already knows this, is that I can't remember when I have liked a protagonist as much as I've liked Lucy in a long time.
And I tend to agree with that. And I think one of the things that we both like about her is her willingness to cope with the enjoyment she gets from committing violence.
Yeah, like I don't know where the thought came from because it seems kind of like antithetical to like a usual protagonist story. But maybe he just doesn't want to tell a usual protagonist story, but like she feels best when she's killing the bad guys. And she doesn't seem like she's revolted by that fact, but she continues to be a good person even though like she enjoys like the killing part. So I thought that was an interesting approach.
Yeah, and so there's a couple ways we can look at that, right? The bad guys also, because of the condition that they have, really enjoy hurting people. So we have the exact, opposite scenario of that. Here's someone who's not infected, but is getting the same, I don't want to say the same kick because it's not exactly the same thing, but she definitely doesn't shy away from it. And she considers killing pretty much everybody that comes down the path, right? So now the other thing too to remember is that she basically she doesn't kill the first kid, right? She fucks him up pretty bad in the cave, if I remember correctly, because she encounters him again later,
scratches his face and all that.
Yeah, after she sees what happens to her adopted parents, there could be an argument that the enjoyment is the satisfaction of revenge. Like she's seen all these bodies, she's seen people she knows, but then her adopted parents are basically comatose, and she pretty quickly decides that it's unlikely that they're going to come back from that.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point because, especially with her backstory, like the adopted parents are the only people in her life besides Bucket who are like a good thing for her and were like her opportunity to have someone not leave her behind. And so when they're gone, when they're out of the picture, yeah, she's feeling like all of those negative things, and she needs to break the thing that took away her chance at like peace and happiness and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go with that. That's strong.
One more thing I want to address. There are two parts in this book that came out of absolutely nowhere and were done wonderfully. So there's the part where Tony jabs the screwdriver right through the dude's mouth, the reporter that sent down from the Night Watchman podcast. Like I had to read the set, because I'm reading it and I go, wait a minute, wait, hold on, what just happened? And I had to go back and like reread that passage again. And that happens again when Judah takes an axe to the back of the head when they go out to Brewer's place to retrieve the pipe bomb. Just again, out of nowhere, he's got like an axe sticking out of the back of his head. And they both worked in book form the way they would in movie form, like an absolute double take, only on the words versus the shock of it happening on the screen. So I thought both of those, killings came out of nowhere. I mean, how do I say this? It's maybe a little bit telegraphed because I don't think we expected Bucket to die. At least I didn't as a reader,
right?
Well, but see, you don't know. Once Bucket dies, then you go, okay, all bets are off, and anybody can die. Is my thought, which ultimately is what, and we'll talk about the end, I'm sure, but still, like Bucket had a long, slow death, right? Like he was really hurt, and then they were like, we think he's dying. You know what I mean? So you really got a few pages to live with. Bucket might be expiring, and then he does, and then these other two, man, just bam, bam, like one sentence kills.
So I have to make an acknowledgement to like something that was excellently done with Judah's death. It was when the axe was getting pulled out of his head, and he said that it made like a specific kind of like squeaking noise as like the axe metal like was moving against the pieces of skull. fucking amazing. It's like, it almost made me think like, how many skulls has Jeremy Robert Johnson buried in Axon? Because like it was such a great detail to include.
Yeah, and that's all. The gore and the violence was so over the top, but so well done. I forget. The girl. So for anybody who didn't read the book, I don't know why you're listening to this. There is a girl that's infected that they basically capture. I'm doing this in air quotes. That they hold up at the record store for a little bit, and when she basically births the kind of octopus creature,
Yup.
and it goes into her ear, like the simple line that her face split in 4 parts, like very specifically 4 parts, is just, it just delivers like this. Because I'm thinking, I'm trying to picture. And I'm picturing like 3 different ways that a face could split into 4 parts.
Yep.
So all of it done so well.
Yeah, he's great at writing the gore. And he did a good job backing it up too, with like talking about using like octopus DNA and blah blah blah, that type of stuff, to kind of get to the weird tentacle shit that we end up reading. But yeah, like I feel like he's at home when he's describing these fucked up violent things that are happening, or even just like sprinkling in details. Because when we met Emmett, who is the reporter from Night Watchman, because Night Watchman sent him to go see what was going on, and the reason they did that was because all communications were cut off to this one town, and so they're like, the only way we're going to get information about this is if we send someone. Airtight. I think the way that he plotted it was very, very well done. So Emmett's presence is justified, but when they first encounter him as like the savior who pulls up in a car, like pretty classic, like horror movie, like hits someone with their car to like open the door and save people. Very, very good. But he's talking about like the detail that was included that I thought was great, but like totally not necessary, was that the person who attacked him, their legs were on backwards.
Yeah.
So good. So wonderfully detailed in a way that you wouldn't expect, but it really added something. And then even that was referenced later in the book. So such good storytelling and very good, believable detail with like the gory shit.
Yeah. It's also clever use of, again, the Night Watchman podcast, right? So although I think we only get 2 Night Watchman actual podcasts, he serves as like a third extension, right? Because he fills them in about going to the school or the community center or wherever, and all that he sees there, which then further solidifies at least Steve. So again, if you didn't read the book, who's the actual scientist who worked on this project, but like in one of those sequestered kind of ways where like you only knew about the little part that you were working on and didn't really have an idea of the big thing. It helps him put together the kind of like impregnation that this creature is doing. So again, also using the Night Watchman podcast, only this time through a reporter, to kind of give us more detail that happened off screen for us.
Yeah, it worked very well. And that's the thing, like I'm going to say right now, there's some things about the science / weird biology of the evil thing that I either don't fully understand or don't believe. Doesn't matter in the story because the story works out so well. Like I like the story so much I didn't care enough to like figure out if it all makes sense. I hope that makes sense, like, and I don't know if you feel the same way, Livius, but there was a couple things where I'm like, hey, wait a minute, but then I just didn't care.
Yeah, I didn't give it much thought. I just accepted that whatever, you know what I mean? Like I don't know anything about octopi. Like I don't, like, so I was like, sure, but you know what? The way it was written, even the explanations, I was like, all right, well, it sounds like someone gave it some thought. I mean, it wasn't like half-assed, like this is just alien technology we don't understand. Like there was a lot of background detail information put into it.
The one thing I'll tell you, which I learned recently, is that unlike most life on Earth, octopus has the ability to rewrite 30% of its own DNA. So like it's probably the most reprogrammable like animal. So like adaptation and evolution can happen massively faster than like any other species. So that even seemed pretty well researched to me, like because yeah, like he probably took, like some license on what that actually means or what it could be like in a science fiction type of story.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, but like even that was like pretty well done. Yeah.
And I guess we should talk about the end. So I will say this over in the regular review. This is probably my favorite conclusion to a story this year.
100% agree. I will not fight you on that. I agree 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ability for an author to close out the story by killing every single person you cared about in the story, I feel like takes a little balls, right? Like I don't like, you're definitely closing off any chance at some kind of sequel. At least a sequel that anybody will accept. Could he continue to write about the octopus creatures? Sure, right? But and it makes you kind of sad, right?
Yeah, okay, so actually it's funny. Friend of the podcast, Jesse Lawrence, like a day before I finished reading this, texted me and said, just finished reading the Loop, fucking hell. And then the next day when I finished reading it, I texted him back, just finished reading the Loop, fucking hell. Because
Yes. Yeah. So again, for anybody who's not familiar, a group of our protagonists, a small group of them towards the end, decide that the only way to put an end to this is to basically have the government nuke the town. So in a typical story, they would escape at the last moment from when the town was completely wiped out, or the missiles would be called off at the end. I'm thinking of
The Rock.
Outbreak. Well, Outbreak is the one I was thinking of. You know what I mean? But something along those lines, because again, it's not the first story to have the threat of the town just being wiped out by the government because something is completely out of control. So we spend the last 10% of this book, kind of wondering, like, how are they going to get out of this? Like, this is the plan. It's the only way they can stop this from happening. Like, he does a good job of getting you to buy this is the only solution. But you're still wondering what's going to happen to the protagonists, the three that hatch this plan towards the very end of the book. And I think all three of them went out in fairly fitting ways.
Yeah, totally agree. Because Steve gets redemption in a way, even though his plan doesn't work. He did the thing that he thought he needed to do in order to to right the wrong of him being greedy by just taking a job that sounded fun. Like, his guilt is ill applied because I'm sure it was like the rest of the people that, were involved with this who were like the real guilty people. But, he felt bad because if it wasn't for him, this shit wouldn't be going on.
Right.
But so Lucy and Brewer are the ones that pretty much make it to the very end. And they've been traumatized so much that it almost seems like death is okay. Like they're able to make the choice to sacrifice themselves, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it also means that they don't have to run away from and continue fighting murder crazy people too. Like, I kind of got that feeling that it was like, you know what, I'll be happy to just kind of chill for a bit. So that was kind of a cool way to include that kind of feeling in the end of the book.
Well, and it's Lucy probably halfway through the book starts kind of foreshadowing that, right? But the fact that they do it in a way that saves, obviously we don't know what happens, but we're going to assume that they save the entire world, right? By their ability to get a nuke dropped on this town in fairly short order. But there's also the part where, Lucy takes on the infection, right? And that's how she's going to get them to drop the nuke. That's how she's going to communicate outside of, just whatever shouting distance. So there's some really good martyrdom stuff in there too. And all in all, fairly touching at the end. I mean, even her relationship with Brewer that was non-existent on page 1.
Yep.
and we go through the course of a day, right? Like 24 hours, maybe. If you take out, so from the cave party, we go about 24 hours into the future,
Right.
Through 75% of this book. Like even the relationship they developed was pretty legit and pretty believable.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It all worked really well, and I liked, and regardless of whether he wanted to do it or not, like he removed obstacles to like people thinking that, the resolution was shitty by Lucy's parents being confirmed to be dead. So by her making the choice to blow up the town, she's not killing her parents. They're already gone. Brewer's family is all gone. So he's not going to feel like, oh, I need to save my family. They're gone. So like, I feel like plot wise, everything was just really tightly told in a way that like it made the ending not only justified and and the right thing to do, but just very satisfying as a way to kind of tie a bow on everything that happened so far.
Yeah, it's hard to find a problem with this book. I mean, there's a couple little niggling aspects, and I know for you touched on one, which was a little bit of the science behind it. But man, from a plot, story, structure, whatever, it's really hard to find something that's that you can call out on this one.
Yeah. The only thing that I wish that there was like more time to explore was that, and I put her in the characters just for one specific reason, is this girl Ada Kaiser, who was a friend of Brewer's, who they mentioned earlier in the book at the party, but she's infected and she's found a way to get around like the weird shift between like too much dopamine and too much adrenaline or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly what it was, but like the loop that they're talking about where they're cycling through the good feelings and the bad feelings was by doing cocaine, which first of all, fucking great, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was a great way to like through substance abuse circumvent the shit that was happening. But then I thought of like, he went through, earlier in the book, he was talking about, the Night Watchman journalist Emmett had just a suitcase full of drugs because he was a big fan of Hunter S. Thompson. And in my mind, when she started talking about how cocaine helped her, I was like, oh, they're going to grab that suitcase full of drugs. And that never happened. So I was like, oh man, that was a lost opportunity. But it's such a small detail that like, how could you hold it against the story?
Yeah, no, I agree. I also thought the same thing, especially I don't think we mentioned it even in the proper review, right? Like Brewer was a total stoner. Like
right.
He was like eating a bag of mushrooms as they were going into the cave party. And you know what, the cocaine thing, I don't know anything about cocaine, but I mean, anything that affects your mind just makes total sense, right? Because it can combat the effects of this other thing that's kind of controlling your mind. So yeah, the use of drugs, like you said, even in its small thing was well done. Like I said, it's hard to find fault in this one.
Yeah. I think we did a good job of finding all the awesome spoilery stuff to talk about. I can't really think of anything else that I need to like work through in my head. I'm even looking at the list of characters to see if anything pops to mind, but like, like the scientist stuff, like the stuff that we cut mostly through conspiracy theory, but then was later confirmed by Steve, the scientist. I didn't care how well that part was told. Like, I didn't care enough to like see if it was like a good way of explaining what was going on, but it was a good character. He was a great character, I think.
I agree. I don't think I've got anything else. Oh, we can talk about Jason. So Jason is, I don't know, basically almost patient zero on this whole thing. But even the fact that they touch on like he's a scumbag and he has sex with these two girls in the same night, and then even that comes back to tie into the story later.
Yeah.
Was really well done, because I didn't give that another fucking thought. I thought they were just talking about this guy's kind of a scumbag, you know, like, and it comes back later to be that he's the one knocking up high school girls so they can birth more octopus monsters or whatever you want to call them. They didn't even get a name in the book, which is also kind of cool.
Right. Well, the Oracle was the overall being or whatever, but like, so, but yeah. And I think that's like the takeaway from like there is a ton of stuff going on in this story, but it is so tightly written that if it's mentioned, it matters somehow, and you get to see how at some point. I know that's a weird way of saying it, but like everything matters. Like it's just really tightly done.
All right. I think that brings us to the end. 20-minute spoiler talk for Jeremy Robert Johnson's The Loop. I thought this might be a little bit of a longer one. So, hey, if you're here listening to this, thank you so much for your support. Not sure, looking at our schedule, if and when we'll be back with another one of these, but as soon as we have a book worth spoiling, we'll be here talking about it.